The night smelled of rust and rain, the kind that seeps into your clothes and makes your bones feel older than they are. Lena had learned to recognize that smell long before she learned how to read. It meant the alley would be quiet, the market stalls shuttered, and the scrapyard's guard too busy warming his hands by a barrel fire to notice a thin girl slipping through the shadows. Hunger sharpened her senses tonight, not just the ache in her stomach, but something else, an unease that tugged at her chest as if the dark itself was watching her breathe. She was counting steps when she heard it. A dull, muffled thud. Not metal falling. Not a cat. Not the wind. It came again, closer this time, like a trapped heartbeat knocking from inside the earth. Lena froze. In the scrapyard, fear was practical. You measured it against hunger and decided which would hurt more. She waited, breath held, counting to 10. On 8, she heard a voice, barely a voice at all, ragged, hoarse, desperate. "Please, anyone." Her eyes drifted to the object near the far fence, half hidden beneath a tarp soaked dark with rain. A car trunk. Old model, black paint scratched to gray, the kind of vehicle rich people never drove anymore. The knocking came again, weak but unmistakable. Every warning she'd ever been given screamed at once. Don't touch what isn't yours. Don't get involved. Don't be seen. People like her survived by being invisible. Lena took a step back, then another, heart pounding so hard it made her dizzy. But then she saw the hand. It slipped through a narrow gap where the trunk hadn't closed properly, pale fingers trembling, skin scraped raw, nails broken and bloody. Not reaching to grab her. Just reaching, like it didn't know where else to go. She didn't remember deciding to move. She was suddenly there, tugging the tarp away, rain soaking her hair and thin jacket. The trunk lock was bent, damaged, maybe rushed. She braced her foot against the bumper and pulled with all the strength her small body had. The trunk flew open. A man lay inside, curled unnaturally, suit wrinkled and stained, face bruised, lips cracked. His eyes snapped open at the sudden light, wild and unfocused at first, then they landed on her. And something changed. It wasn't relief. Not exactly. It was shock so deep it looked like fear. For a second, Lena thought she'd done something wrong. Maybe he thought she was part of whoever had locked him in there. She took a step back, hands raised. "I didn't." Her voice came out small, broken by the rain. The man tried to speak, failed, then swallowed hard. His gaze never left her face, tracing it slowly, as if he were seeing something that shouldn't exist. When he finally spoke, his voice shook not from pain, but from something else entirely. "No," he whispered. "This isn't possible." She didn't understand. She only knew he needed help. She looked around the yard, panic rising. If the guard came, if anyone saw them, everything would fall apart. She'd be blamed. She always was. "I can get help," she said, though she had no idea how. "But you have to be quiet." He reached out again, fingers brushing her sleeve. The touch was light, almost reverent. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lena." The way he said it back, Lena, made her chest tighten. Like the name meant more to him than it ever had to her. Sirens wailed somewhere far away. He flinched violently, grabbing the edge of the trunk as if expecting it to slam shut again. "They can't find me," he said urgently. "You don't understand if they do." "I don't understand anything," Lena snapped, fear sharpening her words. "You were locked in a car. You're hurt. You need a hospital." A strange, almost broken smile touched his lips. "Hospital." He shook his head slowly. "They'll be watching hospitals." That was when she noticed the watch on his wrist, gold, heavy, unmistakably expensive. Even scratched and smeared with blood, it gleamed. Her eyes widened despite herself. "You're rich," she said before she could stop herself. He laughed softly, then winced. "That's one word for it." Another sound cut through the rain. Footsteps. The guard. Lena's stomach dropped. "Can you walk?" she whispered urgently. He tried to sit up, groaning as pain flashed across his face. "I think so," he said, though it was clear he wasn't sure. She hesitated only a moment before slipping under his arm, lifting with everything she had. He was heavier than she expected, and for a terrifying second she thought they'd both fall. But somehow they didn't. They staggered toward the far exit, hearts pounding in sync. Just before they reached the gate, he stopped abruptly. "Why did you help me?" he asked, breath ragged. Lena didn't look at him. "Because you were asking," she said simply. If this story already has you hooked, take a second right now to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps bring you more powerful stories like this one. They slipped out into the alley, rain swallowing them whole. Lena led him through turns and narrow passages she'd memorized since childhood, until the city itself seemed to lose them. Finally, they reached an abandoned storefront with a broken door. She eased him inside, heart racing, listening for any sign they'd been followed. The man leaned against the wall, breathing hard. In the dim light, he studied her again, really studied her. The curve of her cheek. The small scar above her eyebrow. The eyes that had seen too much too soon. Tears welled suddenly, to her shock. "Why are you looking at me like that?" she demanded. He closed his eyes, a single tear slipping free. "Because," he said quietly, "you have the same face as the woman who saved my life once, and the same eyes as the child I lost." Before she could ask what he meant, a phone vibrated in his pocket. He stiffened, color draining from his face as he checked the screen. "They've found the car," he whispered. "And Lena, if they realize you were there." Footsteps echoed outside the broken door, closer than before. The footsteps paused just outside the broken door, close enough that Lena could hear the soft scrape of shoes against concrete. She pressed herself into the shadow beside the man, heart slamming so loudly she was sure it would give them away. The rain outside masked smaller sounds, but silence inside the storefront felt fragile, like glass about to crack. The man's hand closed gently around her wrist, not tight, just enough to steady her trembling. His other hand slid into his pocket again, checking his phone, then froze. A beam of light swept across the doorway, slow and deliberate. "Clear," a voice said outside. "Come." "Professional." Another voice answered, closer this time. He couldn't have gone far. He was barely conscious. Lena's breath caught. Barely conscious. That was true only minutes ago. She glanced at the man beside her. His jaw tightened, eyes sharp now despite the bruises. He leaned closer, his mouth barely inches from her ear. "There's a back room," he whispered. "If we're quiet." She nodded, though fear made her movements stiff. They eased deeper into the dark, every step measured. The back room was smaller, choked with old shelves and the smell of damp paper. She slipped behind a stack of broken crates, pulling him down with her just as the light returned, sweeping across the main room. The door creaked open fully. "Nothing here," someone muttered, unconvinced. The light lingered, then moved on. The door shut again, footsteps retreating slowly, as if the men outside were arguing with themselves about leaving. Only when the sounds faded completely did Lena realize she'd been holding her breath. She sagged against the wall, dizzy. The man exhaled shakily, a sound that was almost a laugh. "You move like someone who's been hiding her whole life," he said softly. She didn't answer. Her legs felt weak, and now that the danger had passed, the weight of everything rushed in. She slid down to sit on the cold floor, hugging her knees. The man followed, careful, wincing as he did. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "My name is Adrian," he said finally. Adrian Hale. The name meant nothing to her. She shrugged. "I don't need to know your name." He studied her again, then nodded. "Fair." She watched him with guarded eyes. Up close, he looked older than she'd first thought. Lines marked his face, not just from age but from a life lived hard, even if that life had been wrapped in money. There was something restless about him, something wounded beneath the confidence he was trying to reclaim. "You shouldn't be here," he said gently. "This isn't safe." "Now you know how I feel every day," Lena replied. He was quiet after that. The rain slowed outside, turning from a roar into a whisper. Adrian shifted, then grimaced, pressing a hand to his side. Blood darkened his shirt where she hadn't noticed before. "You're bleeding," she said, alarm cutting through her exhaustion. "I've been worse," he replied, though his pale face betrayed him. She stood, rummaging through the debris until she found an old cloth. Without asking, she pressed it against his side. He sucked in a breath but didn't pull away. "You don't flinch much," he observed. "I learned not to," she said. "Flinching doesn't help." Something about that made his eyes soften. "How old are you, Lena?" "Old enough." He smiled faintly. That wasn't an answer. She met his gaze, defiant. "Neither was your question." For the first time, a real laugh escaped him, short, surprised, then cut off by pain. "You're extraordinary," he said, almost to himself. She rolled her eyes. "I'm hungry." The word hung between them, stark and honest. Adrian reached into his pocket again, slower this time, and pulled out a folded stack of bills. Even in the dim light, Lena could see how thick it was. Her breath caught before she could stop it. "No," she said immediately, stepping back. He paused. "I wasn't offering charity." "Yes, you were. I was offering help." "Same thing," she snapped. "I don't take money from strangers." He looked at her for a long moment, then slowly folded the bills back into his pocket. "Then let me earn your help," he said. "I need somewhere safe. Just for tonight." She hesitated. Every instinct told her to run, to disappear back into the city and forget this ever happened. But she remembered the hand reaching from the trunk, the voice begging. "There's a place," she said reluctantly. "But you won't like it." "I've been in a car trunk," he replied. "My standards are flexible." They waited until the streets were quieter, then slipped out into the night again. Lena led him through a maze of back alleys and half-lit streets until they reached a narrow building wedged between two abandoned shops. A stairwell led down, not up, into darkness. She stopped at the bottom, listening. Then she knocked twice, paused, and knocked once more. The door creaked open, revealing an older woman with sharp eyes and a cigarette dangling from her lips. Her gaze flicked from Lena to Adrian, lingering on his injuries. "You're late," the woman said. "Had trouble," Lena replied. The woman snorted. "You always do." She stepped aside. "Bring him in before someone sees." Inside, the room was warmer than Lena expected, crowded with mismatched furniture and the quiet presence of other lives. Adrian took it all in, his expression unreadable. The woman handed Lena a towel, then eyed Adrian again. "He trouble?" "Yes," Adrian answered before Lena could. "But not hers." The woman raised an eyebrow. "Bold of you to decide that." He met her stare evenly. "I'm very good at deciding things." Something in his tone made the woman pause. She shrugged. "Sit. Don't bleed on my floor." As Adrian lowered himself onto a chair, Lena felt the weight of what she'd done settle over her. This wasn't just helping someone in need anymore. This was entanglement. Adrian caught her watching him. "They won't stop looking," he said quietly. "And now, neither will they for you." Before she could respond, a knock sounded at the door again, 3 sharp raps, too confident, too soon. The room seemed to hold its breath as the knocking echoed again, harder this time. The older woman's eyes narrowed, cigarette forgotten between her fingers. Lena felt her pulse jump into her throat. "No one's supposed to come this late," the woman muttered. Adrian straightened despite the pain, his posture shifting subtly, like a man stepping back into a role he knew too well. "How many exits?" he asked quietly. "Just the back," the woman replied, already moving. "And it's not pretty." Another knock, followed by a voice. "Polite. Too polite. We're looking for a man who may be injured. We were told he was seen near here." Lena's stomach twisted. She looked at Adrian, waiting for panic. Instead, his face went calm, calculating. He reached out and lightly touched her arm. "Listen to me," he whispered. "Whatever happens next, stay behind me." "I don't need protecting," she whispered back, though her hands were shaking. He gave her a look that made her fall silent, not commanding, not afraid, but deeply certain. "Humor me." The older woman cracked the door just enough to peer out. "You were told wrong," she said flatly. A shadow shifted outside. "May we come in and check?" "No," she snapped. "You may leave." There was a pause. Too long. Then the door was pushed harder, just an inch, enough to test resistance. The woman braced herself against it, teeth clenched. Lena moved without thinking, pressing her weight beside her. The wood groaned. "Please," the voice said again, friendly but cold. "We don't want trouble." Adrian stood. The movement made him sway, but he stayed upright. He spoke loudly enough to be heard through the door. "Trouble isn't what you want," he said. "Because if I don't make a call in the next 5 minutes, people much more difficult than you will start asking questions." Silence. Then a different voice, sharper. "You hear that? He thinks he's important." Adrian smiled faintly, the expression chilling in its confidence. "I don't think," he said. "I know." The woman glanced back at him, eyes flickering with surprise. She relaxed her grip slightly. Lena felt it too, the shift in the air. Whatever power Adrian had lost earlier, it was returning, piece by piece. Footsteps retreated a step, then another. "This isn't over," the first voice called. "Through the door. You can't hide forever." "No," Adrian agreed softly. "I can't." The footsteps faded. Only when the sounds were completely gone did the woman shut the door and lock it, her hands trembling slightly. She turned on Adrian. "You better explain who you are," she said, "because men like that don't come knocking for nothing." Adrian lowered himself back into the chair, the strength draining from him now that the threat had passed. "I'm someone who trusted the wrong people," he said, "and paid for it." Lena watched him closely. The way he spoke, the way strangers listened, it didn't match the image of a man stuffed into a trunk and left to die. "They called you important," she said. "Are you?" He met her gaze. "Yes." The honesty startled her more than any lie would have. "How important?" "Important enough that if they find me," he said carefully, "a lot of people will benefit and a few will disappear." The woman let out a low whistle. "That kind of important brings heat." "I know." She crushed her cigarette into an ashtray. "You can stay tonight. After that, you're on your own." Adrian nodded. "That's more than fair." The woman disappeared into another room. Lena remained standing, unsure what to do with herself. Adrian looked up at her. "You should go," he said. "You've done enough." She frowned. "You don't get to decide that." A corner of his mouth lifted. "You're right. I don't." She hesitated, then sat across from him. "Those people, They won't stop, will they? No, he said simply. And now they know I exist. Yes. She swallowed hard. You said I look like someone you lost. His expression changed instantly, a shadow passing over his eyes. I did, he said. A long time ago. Who? My daughter. The word landed heavy between them. Lena felt something twist inside her. Something she didn't have words for. She's dead. He nodded once. Officially. The way he said it made her uneasy. Officially. He studied her face again, slower this time, as if committing it to memory. How were you born? He asked gently. The question felt strange, intimate. I don't know, she replied. I don't remember my parents. Do you know where? She shook her head. I was told a hospital, but I don't know which. His hand tightened on the armrest. Do you have any papers? A birth certificate? No. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. You're imagining things, Lena said. Finally. Lots of people look alike. Yes, Adrian agreed. They do. But he didn't sound convinced. The older woman returned, tossing a bottle of water to Lena and handing Adrian a small packet of painkillers. That's all I've got, she said. And don't get any ideas about staying longer. Adrian accepted them gratefully. Thank you. She looked between them, eyes sharp. That girl means trouble for you, she said to him. And you think I don't already know that? He replied quietly. Night deepened outside. Somewhere in the distance a siren wailed, then another. Lena stared at the floor, her mind racing. Why did they lock you in a trunk? She asked suddenly. Adrian took a sip of water, then answered. Because killing me would raise questions. Disappearing me buys time. For what? For them to take everything. A chill ran through her. Everything. He looked at her again, and this time there was something like resolve in his eyes. My company. My assets. My name. You're really a millionaire, she whispered. Billionaire, he corrected softly. The word felt unreal, absurd against the peeling walls and flickering light. She almost laughed. And I just pulled you out of a trunk, she said. Yes, he replied. You did. Another silence fell, heavier than before. Outside, tires crunched slowly on gravel. A car came to a stop nearby, engine idling. Adrian's gaze snapped to the door. So, he said quietly, it seems they've found us again. The engine outside kept running, a low, patient growl that crawled under Lena's skin. No one moved. Even the older woman had gone still, her eyes fixed on the door as if she could will it to disappear. Adrian stood slowly, every motion deliberate. How thin are the walls? He asked. Thin enough to hear lies, the woman replied. Good, he said. Then they'll hear mine. Lena looked up at him sharply. What are you doing? Buying time, he murmured. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, the screen lighting his bruised face. His thumb hovered for a moment, then pressed a number. The ringing sounded impossibly loud in the small room. Outside, a car door opened. Footsteps approached, unhurried this time, confident. Lena felt her chest tighten. They imagined men with guns, dark coats, faces she wouldn't remember but would never forget. The call connected. Yes, Adrian said calmly. It's me. He listened, his expression unreadable. No, I'm not dead. That was the point, wasn't it? A knock came at the door again. Not aggressive. Controlled. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 again. Mr. Hale, a voice called. We know. You're in there. The older woman swore under her breath. Adrian raised a finger, signaling silence, and spoke into the phone. You said you wanted proof I was alive. You have it. Now listen carefully. If anything happens to the girl with me, the files I sent will be released. Lena's head snapped toward him. Girl with me. The voice on the phone rose, sharp and angry, though she couldn't hear the words. Adrian smiled faintly. No, you didn't know about that, did you? That's the problem with betrayal. You never know what the other person prepared. The knocking stopped. The men outside were listening now. Lena could feel it. Adrian continued, his voice steady. You have 10 minutes to leave. After that, I start talking to people you don't want me talking to. He ended the call and slid the phone back into his pocket. The silence that followed was suffocating. Was that true? Lena whispered. About me? He looked at her, serious. Yes. Her throat went dry. What files? Insurance, he said. I never move without it. The older woman folded her arms. You're using her as leverage. Adrian didn't flinch. They already are. Outside, the engine revved slightly, then settled again. A door slammed. Someone laughed too casually. They're stalling, Lena said, surprised at how steady her voice sounded. Adrian nodded. They're deciding whether I'm bluffing. And you? He met her eyes. No. Time stretched. Lena counted her breaths, then stopped when it made her dizzy. Her thoughts spiraled about how an ordinary night had turned into this, about how close she'd come to walking away from the trunk and never knowing any of this existed. Finally, the engine outside cut off. Footsteps retreated. Gravel crunched. A car door opened, then closed. Another engine started farther away. They waited long after the sound faded. When the woman finally unlocked the door and peered out, the alley was empty. Gone, she said slowly. Lena's legs nearly gave out in relief. She sank onto a chair, shaking. Adrian exhaled deeply and pressed a hand to his side, the tension draining from him all at once. Blood seeped through the cloth Lena had tied earlier. You're worse, she said, panic rising. Again. I'll survive, he replied, though his voice was weaker now. I always do. The woman grabbed a coat from a hook and tossed it at Lena. You, she said sharply, help me get him settled. Then you leave. Lena looked at Adrian. He didn't protest. That hurt more than she expected. They moved him to a narrow bed in the back room. Lena helped him lie down, her hands careful, practiced in a way she hadn't realized before. He watched her as she worked, eyes thoughtful even through the pain. You've done this before, he said quietly. She nodded. People get hurt, and you help them. Sometimes. He smiled faintly. That explains a lot. When she finished, she stepped back, suddenly unsure of herself. The woman stood in the doorway, arms crossed, waiting. I should go, Lena said. Adrian reached out, stopping her with a light touch on her wrist. Lena, he said, if you disappear tonight, I won't be able to protect you. I don't need protection, she replied, automatically. You didn't yesterday, he said gently. You do now. She pulled her hand free. "I've been protecting myself my whole life." "I know," he said. "That's why they'll come for you." Her heart skipped. "Why?" "Because you saw me," he said. "Because you helped me. And because—" he hesitated. "Because what?" she pressed. "Because you matter to me," he finished. The words hung between them, heavy and confusing. "That doesn't make sense," she said. "It will," he replied. The woman cleared her throat loudly. "Time's up." Lena hesitated, torn between instinct and something new, something dangerous. "If they come back," she said to Adrian, "what then?" "Then everything changes," he said. She turned toward the door, then stopped. "You never answered me," she said. "About your daughter." Adrian's face softened, pain flickering. "There. Her name was Eliza," he said. "She would be about your age now." Lena swallowed hard. "And she died." "Yes," he said. "In a fire. At least, that's what they told me." A chill crept up her spine. "Who's they?" He didn't answer. The woman opened the door wider. Cold air rushed in. Lena stepped toward it, then paused again, her hand on the frame. "If they find me," she said quietly, "I won't be easy to take." Adrian smiled, pride and worry mingling in his eyes. "I believe you." She slipped out into the night, the door closing behind her with a soft finality. The alley felt different now, smaller. Watched. As she walked away, she didn't see the shadow detach itself from across the street, or the faint red light blinking on a parked car's dashboard. Inside, Adrian stared at the closed door, his jaw tight. "They found the wrong girl," he whispered to himself. Again, the night wrapped around Lena as she walked, tighter than before, like it knew her name now. Every sound felt louder. The echo of her footsteps, the distant bark of a dog, the hum of traffic she couldn't see. She kept her head down, hood pulled low, moving the way she always had, blending into the cracks of the city. But something had shifted. She could feel it in her chest, a constant pressure, as if invisible eyes followed her with every step. She turned twice without meaning to, her instincts screaming. Nothing. Just shadows and puddles reflecting broken street lights. Still, she quickened her pace. Her shelter wasn't far, a half-collapsed building near the old rail line, forgotten by everyone except those with nowhere else to go. She slipped inside through a gap in the fencing and climbed the stairs to the second floor, careful where she placed her feet. Only when she reached her corner, hidden behind a fallen beam, did she finally stop. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them together, forcing herself to breathe in, out, the way she'd learned when panic threatened to swallow her whole. It didn't help much. Her mind replayed everything in fragments. The trunk, Adrian's eyes when he saw her, the way powerful men had spoken her name without knowing it. "Because you matter to me," she scoffed softly, hugging her knees. Rich people said strange things. They didn't mean them the way people like her did. Still, the words lingered, refusing to fade. A faint sound made her stiffen. Footsteps. Careful. Too careful. Lena held her breath and listened. The steps stopped below. She reached slowly for the rusted metal pipe she kept beside her, a useless weapon, but better than nothing. "Lena," a voice called softly. Male. Young. Her heart jumped. She recognized that voice. "Kai?" she whispered. He appeared at the top of the stairs, hands raised slightly to show he wasn't a threat. His dark hair was damp, his jacket thin against the cold. He frowned when he saw her face. "What happened?" he asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," she said. "What are you doing?" "Here." "Looking for you," he replied. "People were asking questions. Not the usual kind." Her grip tightened on the pipe. "Who?" He shook his head. "Didn't say. Just described you too well." Her stomach dropped. "What did they say?" "That you helped someone," Kai said, slowly. "Someone important." Lena laughed, sharp and humorless. "I help people all the time." "Not like this," he said. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "They offered money, Lena. A lot of it." The word made her flinch. "For what?" "For information." She closed her eyes briefly. So Adrian had been right. She opened them again, meeting Kai's gaze. "Did you take it?" He bristled. "No. I didn't ask to accuse you," she said, quietly. "I asked because I need to know who I can trust." Kai's expression softened. "You saved me. Once," he said. "I don't forget things like that." She nodded, relief loosening something in her chest. "Then listen to me. You need to disappear for a while." "What about you?" "I'm good at disappearing," she replied. "It's kind of my thing." A sound drifted up from below, the crunch of gravel, tires, doors opening. Kai's eyes widened. "They followed me." Lena swore under her breath. "How many?" "2 cars," he said. "At least." Her mind raced. Running now would be useless. She grabbed her bag, slung it over her shoulder. "Go out the back," she said. "Head toward the tracks. Don't look back." "And you?" Kai's eyes widened. "They followed me." Lena swore under her breath. "How many?" "2 cars," he said. "At least." Her mind raced. Running now would be useless. She grabbed her bag, slung it over her shoulder. "Go out the back," she said. "Head toward the tracks. Don't look back." "And you?" "I'll distract them." "No," he said sharply. "Lena," she pushed him toward the stairwell. "You owe me," she said. "This is how you pay it." He hesitated, then nodded once. "Be careful." She watched him disappear, then turned and moved the opposite way, toward the front stairs. Her heart pounded, but her face was calm. She'd learned long ago that fear only helped if you used it. She reached the ground floor just as voices drifted in through the broken windows. "That's the building," someone said. "She's here." Lena stepped into the open, hands visible, expression blank. 3 men stood near the fence, well dressed in a way that didn't belong here. One of them smiled when he saw her. "Lena," he said. "We were hoping to meet." "I don't know you," she replied. "But we know you," he said pleasantly. "You helped Mr. Hale." She said nothing. "You see," he continued, "Mr. Hale is a very busy man, and very forgetful, lately. We're just trying to help him remember where he belongs." "He doesn't belong to you," Lena said before she could stop herself. The man chuckled. "That's sweet." Another man stepped forward, his eyes cold. "We don't want trouble," he said. "Just answers." "And if I don't have them?" The first man sighed theatrically. "Then we look harder." Lena's gaze flicked briefly to the side, calculating distances, exits. She could run but not far. Before she could move, headlights flared behind the men, blindingly bright. A sleek black car rolled to a stop, engine purring. The men stiffened. A door opened. A familiar voice cut through the tension, calm and authoritative. Step away from the girl. Lena's breath caught. Adrian stepped into the light, his suit replaced by a dark coat, his injuries hidden but not gone. He looked different, cleaner, sharper, like the man he'd been before the trunk. The men turned as one. "Mr. Hale," the first said, surprised. "You should be resting." "I should," Adrian agreed. "But then I heard you were harassing a minor." "She's not mine," Adrian finished, his voice dropping. "And that's all that matters." One of the men laughed nervously. "You're in no position to make demands." Adrian raised a hand slightly. From the car behind him, another door opened. Then another. People stepped out, quiet, watchful, unmistakably not ordinary. "I think you'll find," Adrian said evenly, "that I am." Silence fell heavy and thick. The men exchanged glances. The smile vanished from the first man's face. "This changes nothing," he said. "No," Adrian replied. "It changes everything." He looked at Lena then, really looked at her, relief and something deeper flickering across his face. "I told you," he said softly, "I wouldn't let them take you." She stared at him, stunned. "You followed me?" "Yes," he said. "And I was late." One of the men took a step back. "We'll be in touch." Adrian's gaze hardened. "You already are." The men retreated to their cars, engines roaring to life as they sped away into the night. The street fell quiet again. Lena let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "And yet," Adrian replied, stepping closer, "here I am." She looked up at him, anger and relief tangled together. "You just made things worse." He nodded. "For them." She shook her head. "You don't understand. They don't forget." "Neither do I," he said. A pause stretched between them. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why are you risking this for me?" Adrian hesitated, then reached into his coat and pulled out a folded photograph. He handed it to her. Lena unfolded it slowly. The girl in the picture stared back at her, same eyes, same curve of the mouth, same small scar above the eyebrow. Her breath left her in a whisper. "That's not possible," she said. Adrian's voice was rough. "I think," he said, "it's time you knew the truth." Lena's fingers tightened around the photograph until the edges bent. Her pulse roared in her ears, drowning out the quiet street, the retreating cars, everything. She looked from the image to Adrian and back again, her mind refusing to settle on one reality. "This is a trick," she said hoarsely. "Some kind of sick trick." Adrian didn't argue. He simply stood there, letting the weight of the moment press down on both of them. "I wish it were," he said finally. "It would be easier." She thrust the photo back at him. "I don't belong to you." "I'm not asking you to," he replied softly. "Then what are you asking?" Her voice cracked despite her effort to stay steady. "I'm asking you to listen," he said. "Not as my daughter. Not as anything you don't choose. Just as Lena." The way he said her name again made something ache behind her eyes. She hated it. She hated how familiar it sounded coming from his mouth. "You said your daughter died in a fire," she said. "You said it like you believed it." "I did," Adrian replied. "For years. And now you don't?" He glanced down the street, then back at her. "I think I was lied to." She laughed bitterly. "You billionaires always think someone's lying to you." His lips twitched, not offended. "Usually they are." Silence stretched. The people who'd arrived with Adrian kept their distance, forming a loose perimeter, eyes alert. Lena suddenly felt very small, standing at the center of something enormous and dangerous. "Tell me," she said, "quickly, before I change my mind." Adrian nodded. My daughter was 6 when the fire happened. It destroyed our old house completely. They told me there were no survivors. I was in another city at the time, closing a deal that would have doubled my company's value. And you chose that over her, Lena said flatly. Pain flashed across his face. I chose to trust the people who told me she was safe, he said. That mistake cost me everything that mattered. Lena swallowed hard. And now you think I'm her. I think, he said carefully, that someone took advantage of the chaos. That a child was removed before the fire reached her room. That the body I was shown wasn't hers. Her head spun. Why would anyone do that? Adrian's expression darkened. Because even then, my enemies understood leverage. You're insane, she said. If you wanted leverage, you wouldn't let the child live. You would, he said quietly, if killing her was too obvious. Lena's chest tightened. Memories stirred at the edges of her mind, bright lights, shouting, the smell of smoke. A woman's voice screaming her name. She'd always thought they were dreams. No, she whispered. You're trying to make me remember things that didn't happen. I'm trying to protect you from things that did, Adrian said. She took a step back. I don't want this. I know. You don't, she snapped. You don't know anything about me. You don't know how I grew up. You don't know what it's like to sleep hungry, to disappear when adults get angry, to learn which streets won't kill you before you're 10. His voice was barely audible. I know I wasn't there. The words hit harder than anything else he'd said. For a moment, she thought she might cry. She hated herself for it. Instead, she turned away, wiping her face with the back of her sleeve. This doesn't change anything, she said. I still don't belong in your world. I'm not asking you to enter it, he replied. I'm asking you to survive it. She looked back at him sharply. Meaning what? Meaning you can't go back to that building, he said. You can't walk the same routes. You can't pretend tonight didn't happen. And where exactly do you suggest I go? She demanded. He hesitated. With me. She laughed again, harsher this time. Absolutely not. Just for now, he said. Until I can make sure you're safe. I don't need your safety, she said. I need my freedom. And I won't take it, he said quickly. You can leave whenever you want. But staying alive is easier with resources. She crossed her arms. So this is an offer. Yes. And if I say no? He met her gaze steadily. Then I'll still keep people watching from a distance. You'll hate it. But I won't stop. She stared at him, realizing he meant it. You really think you have a right? I think, he said, that losing you twice would destroy me. The honesty in his voice stole her anger. She looked away, jaw tight. A phone buzzed nearby. One of Adrian's people stepped closer and murmured something in his ear. Adrian nodded grimly. They're regrouping, he said to Lena. That won't stop. She sighed, exhaustion washing over her. Fine, she said suddenly. One night. Relief flickered across his face, quickly replaced by caution. One night, he agreed. They moved quickly. Lena climbed into the car reluctantly, sitting stiffly beside Adrian. The interior smelled of leather and something clean she didn't recognize. It felt wrong, like stepping into a life that wasn't hers. The city slid by outside the window, familiar streets turning unfamiliar as they moved farther away. She watched everything, memorizing turns out of habit. You can still leave, Adrian said quietly. At any stop. I know, she replied. They arrived at a large, unassuming building guarded discreetly but thoroughly. Lena stiffened. This isn't a house, she said. No, Adrian agreed. It's safer. Inside, the air was warm and quiet. Too quiet. Lena followed him down a hallway lined with doors, each identical. He stopped at one and handed her a keycard. "That room is yours," he said. "No cameras inside. No locks from the outside." She eyed him skeptically. "And your room?" "Down the hall," he said. "Far enough to make you comfortable." She considered him, then nodded once. "I'm not staying," she reminded him. "I know." She stepped into the room. It was simple, clean, nothing like the places she was used to. The bed looked impossibly soft. As she turned to close the door, Adrian spoke again. "Lena." She paused. "I won't force the truth on you," he said. "But there are people who already know it, and they won't be patient." She held his gaze for a long moment. "If you're wrong," she said quietly, "you've ruined my life for nothing." "If I'm wrong," he replied, "I'll spend the rest of it making that right." She shut the door before he could say anything else. Inside, alone, Lena leaned against the door, her legs trembling. She slid down slowly, the photograph still clutched in her hand. She looked at it again, really looked, comparing it to her reflection in the darkened window. Her reflection stared back, older, harder but unmistakably the same. A soft click sounded as the door locked behind her from the inside. Down the hall, Adrian stood still for a long time, listening, his face set with grim determination. "Find everything," he said quietly into his phone. "Because if she's alive, then someone made sure I thought she wasn't." And somewhere in the city, far from the lights and guards, a man watched the building through binoculars and made a call of his own. The man lowered the binoculars slowly, the glow from the building's security lights reflecting faintly in the lenses. "Confirmed," he said into his phone. "She's inside." A pause. Then a voice, smooth and amused. "And Hale?" "With her," the man replied. "Exactly where you predicted." "Good," the voice said. "Do nothing. Let them feel safe." The call ended. The man remained where he was, eyes fixed on the building as if he could see through walls. Inside, Lena lay on the bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. The quiet pressed on her ears until it felt loud. She wasn't used to silence without danger hiding inside it. Her body refused to relax, muscles coiled, ready. She turned the photograph over again, studying details she hadn't noticed before. The background. The toy half visible at the edge. The date scribbled faintly on the back. Her fingers trembled. She squeezed her eyes shut, and images flickered uninvited heat, smoke, a sharp pain in her arm, someone lifting her, running. A scream cut through it all, echoing until her chest tightened. She gasped and sat up. "Stop," she whispered to herself. "You're imagining it." A soft knock at the door made her flinch. "Yes?" she called, instantly alert. "It's me," Adrian said from the other side. "Just checking in." She hesitated, then unlocked the door a crack. He stood there looking tired, older than before, the weight of the night settling into his shoulders. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "I know," he replied. "That wasn't why I came." She waited. "There's something you should know," he said. "The men who came after you tonight? They weren't freelancers." She crossed her arms. "You already said that." "They were internal," he continued. "People who used to work for me." The words sank in slowly. "You mean your own people tried to kill you?" "Yes. And now they're after me," she said. "Yes." She let out a humorless breath. "You really know how to ruin a night." He managed a faint smile. "I didn't come to scare you. Too late. I came to tell you that tomorrow things may get louder," he said. "Questions. Pressure. Attempts to reach you." "I won't answer," she said immediately. I know, he replied. But they'll try anyway. She studied his face. Why are you telling me this now? Because, he said carefully, one of them asked about you by name before tonight. Her stomach dropped. They knew me. They knew of you, he corrected. That worries me. Before she could respond, a sharp sound echoed down the hallway, raised voices, hurried footsteps. Adrian's expression hardened instantly. Stay here, he said. She didn't answer. She followed him anyway. At the end of the hall, 2 security personnel stood rigid, blocking the entrance to a glass-walled conference room. Inside, a woman paced back and forth, phone pressed to her ear, her posture tight with urgency. That's my lawyer, Adrian muttered. The woman saw him and ended the call abruptly. You need to see this, she said, voice low. She turned a tablet toward him. Lena leaned closer despite herself. On the screen was a scanned document, yellowed with age. A hospital intake form. A birth record. Lena's breath caught. Name, Eliza Hale. Date of birth matched the date on the photograph. But beneath it, in smaller text, was a note added weeks later. Discharged to third party due to emergency evacuation. What does that mean? Lena asked before she could stop herself. The lawyer looked at her, startled, then at Adrian. Who is she? Adrian didn't hesitate. She's the reason we're all standing here. The lawyer swallowed. That note shouldn't exist, she said. Someone altered the record. And whoever did it had high-level access. Can you trace it? Adrian asked. I can try, she said. But this was done a long time ago. Whoever covered this knew how to bury things. Lena stepped back, her head spinning. So it's true, she whispered. Someone took a child. Yes, Adrian said quietly, and raised her to disappear. Her heart pounded. I didn't get raised, she snapped. I survived. The lawyer glanced between them, unease creeping into her expression. If this gets out, it won't, Adrian said sharply. Not yet. A phone rang again. The lawyer glanced at the screen, then looked up slowly. They're calling an emergency board meeting, she said. They're moving faster than expected. Of course they are, Adrian replied. They think I'm distracted. They're right, Lena said. He looked at her. No. They think I'm weak. Another alarm sounded, this one lower, more ominous. Perimeter breach, a voice announced calmly over the intercom. Level 2. Lena's blood ran cold. What does Level 2 mean? Adrian's jaw tightened. It means they want to be seen. The lawyer backed away. I'm leaving, she said. If they connect me to this, go, Adrian said. Now. She didn't argue. Security moved swiftly, sealing sections of the building. Lena felt trapped, the walls closing in. You said this place was safe, she said quietly. It is, Adrian replied. That doesn't mean it's invisible. A guard approached, urgency etched into his face. Sir, we have a situation. They're not attacking. Adrian frowned. Then what are they doing? The guard hesitated. They sent something. What? Lena asked. The guard swallowed. A message. On the main screen in the hall, video footage appeared. Grainy at first, then painfully clear. It showed Lena. Younger. Smaller. Sitting on a thin mattress in a dark room, staring at the camera with hollow eyes. Her breath left her in a sob. That's not possible, she whispered. I don't remember that. Adrian stared at the screen, face ashen. They've been watching you, he said. For years. The video cut to black. Text appeared. She was never lost. She was placed. Lena's knees buckled. Adrian caught her before she hit the floor, holding her steady as the room spun. "They knew," she whispered. "They always knew where I was." "Yes," Adrian said, his voice shaking with rage. "And now they're reminding us." Another line of text appeared. "Choose carefully, Adrian. This time, you won't get a second chance." The screen went dark. Silence fell, thick and terrifying. Lena pulled away from Adrian, her eyes blazing. "You said they wouldn't force the truth on me." "They didn't," he said softly. "They forced my hand." She took a shaky breath. "Then listen to me," she said. "I'm not a bargaining chip. I'm not your second chance." "I know," he replied. "Good," she said. "Because if they think they own my past, they're about to learn what happens when you push someone who grew up with nothing left to lose." Outside, unseen by those inside, the man with the binoculars smiled faintly as the building's lights shifted. "Phase 2, he murmured. The city woke the next morning unaware that something old and carefully buried had cracked open overnight. Traffic flowed, screens flashed news that meant nothing, and somewhere between glass towers and forgotten streets, a girl who had once survived by being invisible stood at the center of a war she never chose. Lena didn't sleep. She sat by the window as dawn bled slowly into the sky, replaying every image burned into her mind, the video, the words, the certainty in Adrian's eyes when the truth finally had nowhere left to hide. Fear was still there, but something else had taken root beside it. Anger. Clear, focused, unafraid. "They think they shaped me," she said quietly, breaking the silence. Adrian looked up from his phone. He hadn't slept either. "They shaped circumstances," he replied. "Not you." She turned to face him fully for the first time since the message. "Then stop treating me like something fragile," she said. "Stop hiding things. If I'm part of this, I decide how." He studied her for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "You're right," he said. "And I'm sorry it took me this long to understand that." By noon, everything moved at once. The board meeting they'd called in secret went public to public. Documents Adrian released hit the world like a controlled explosion. Proof of embezzlement, illegal surveillance, falsified deaths. Names that once commanded respect were suddenly paired with words like corruption and abduction. Stocks plummeted. Phones rang unanswered. Men who believed themselves untouchable felt the ground give way beneath them. And in the middle of it all stood Lena. She watched the live feed from a quiet room, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Her face was no longer hidden. Adrian had asked her once if she wanted to stay anonymous. She'd shaken her head. "If they spent years watching me," she'd said, "then they don't get to look away now." When the final evidence dropped, the original fire report, the altered medical records, the payment trails, the story changed forever. The question was no longer who Lena was. It was who had stolen her life. Sirens echoed again that evening, but this time they weren't coming for Adrian. Cars lined up outside buildings that had once been fortresses. Arrests were made quietly, efficiently. The man with the binoculars never made another call. As the sun set, Lena stood alone on the rooftop, the city spread out beneath her like a map she finally understood. Adrian joined her, keeping a careful distance. "It's over," he said. She shook her head. "No," she replied. "It's finished for them." "That's not the same thing." He accepted that. "I don't know what happens now," she continued. "I don't know who I'm supposed to be after this." "You don't have to decide today," Adrian said. She glanced at him. "And you?" A sad smile touched his lips. "I'll spend the rest of my life making sure no one ever takes your choices again. Whether you want me near or not." The honesty in his voice mattered more than any promise. Days passed. The world moved on to the next headline, but Lena didn't. She visited places she'd avoided for years. She said goodbye to people who had been family in the only way she'd known. She stood once more at the edge of the scrapyard where everything had begun and let herself feel it: fear, courage, the impossible chance that had changed her path. One evening, she returned to the building where Adrian waited, not as a rescuer, not as a billionaire, but as a man who had lost and found something irreplaceable. "I'm leaving," she told him. He nodded, though the words clearly hurt. "Where?" "Anywhere," she said. "Everywhere. I need to see who I am without survival breathing down my neck." He took a breath. "And when you come back?" "If," she corrected gently. He smiled. "If." She stepped closer, then paused. "One more thing," she said. "You didn't save me." "I know," he replied. "I saved you," she continued. "And then I saved myself." Pride filled his eyes. "That's my daughter," he said softly, then stopped, watching her reaction. Lena didn't pull away. She didn't step closer either. She simply nodded once. "We'll see," she said. "You'll have to earn that title." She left that night with nothing but a small bag and a future that finally belonged to her. Months later, Adrian received a postcard. No return address. Just a picture of the ocean at sunset. On the back, in familiar handwriting, were 5 words. "I found my own way." He smiled, a tear slipping free not from grief this time, but from something far rarer. Peace. And somewhere far from locked trunks and shadowed alleys, a girl who had once been placed, hidden, and forgotten walked forward freely, carrying her past not as a chain, but as proof that even the darkest plans can be undone by one brave choice, one open trunk, and one life that refused to stay stolen.